Hi, everybody. It is Jolynn Rice. I'm coming to you today on December 16th, 2022, because I wanted to review some of the tips that I put out there around digital advocacy and how to use social media specifically to bring more awareness to cold cases. First, I want to really talk about what is a digital advocate because everything that I'm going to talk about in this particular presentation really highlights the important tasks that a digital advocate has. It's what I do every day with cases that I'm working on. And it's a really important role that you can have in your own case if you have a family member who you've lost due to homicide or if you are advocating for other people. The main goal of an advocate is really to spread awareness, education, and really to inspire other people to take action. You can do that in the virtual world where a lot of people are looking for help and support, and you can do it in the real world. You focus that effort around a specific cause or a policy, and you create goals around increasing awareness and actually creating concrete goals that somebody can follow in order to be an advocate, in order to advocate for that cause. So you should have skills related to digital tools, internet, social media, marketing in general. But it can be as simple as sharing content on Twitter, and it can be as in depth as creating a more sort of formal social media campaign. So the whole goal of being a digital advocate is to create compelling content around these types of causes and then galvanize and encourage people to share that content, sign petitions, and basically advance that cause. While you can do it in the digital world, this is also something that people have been doing for years in the real world, right? Didn't necessarily need or even have social media tools, but now that we have these types of tools at our fingertips, we can play the role of a digital advocate and really have impact. So when we talk about digital advocacy, I want to go through some of the tools that advocates can use. There's a ton of them out there. I've already mentioned the tools like your social media platform. There's email programs like MailChimp. There's online petition software. Change.org is one of them that I use a lot. There's different blogs and resources out there for you to learn more about how to use these tools. But social media is one of the easiest and quickest way that you can have your message heard. People look at your timeline or your messages and they can share it if you're using things like YouTube or maybe even TikTok. These are quick content bites that can be shared. Um, and online petitions, in my opinion, are really a great way to initially get your cause heard. They can go directly to any decision maker that you want. And they have a really, especially Change.org, they have a really great, robust platform for you to be able to share that content, provide updates, and to get signatures. So I always advise people if they want to get their name and their word out there around a cause, start with these kind of digital platforms like change.org. Websites, of course, and blogs are great ways of sharing resources, sharing information, and updating the public. You obviously can make a much bigger impact if you use these types of tools together. So if you leverage change.org, social media, your blog, all at the same time, you're really amplifying the impact that you can have. It just reaches across a lot of different people, a lot of different groups of people. And the really important thing about this is making them work together can have a larger impact. So it's really important when you're laying out your plan to think about what platforms make the most sense. So some specific things to think about before you even start to promote and go out on your social media is like, what is your goal? Make sure that that goal is defined by you, you know what it is, and that it will have an impact at the end of the day. The worst thing you can go out and do, in my opinion, when you're doing these types of advocacy efforts, is not really know what that goal is because you have to measure your success against it, and you have to build particular steps and processes around what you're going to share based on that goal. So you really need to know what your goal is. Also important to identify your ideal audience. Who are you talking to? Who are you trying to galvanize and encourage to share your content? And knowing where those particular people are, what platform they use the most is really important. So my next step in the process would be to suggest that you create a contact list of people, organizations that you want to target with your communication, with your tweets, with your social media updates, with your Instagram, whatever you try to do. Make sure you have a list of handles, email addresses, and all the information you would need to quickly deploy a message. And having that stuff predefined and pre-developed is going to make you more efficient. So think about that. Think about those influencers, those people that share your interests, want to share this message, that talk about these types of issues a lot. So don't skip this step. Make sure you're spending a good amount of time on defining your goal and making sure that you have the right contact list. So one important thing I mentioned before is what goal you have, what outcomes are you looking for? You have to think through this whole process. What is your goal and what are you hoping to get at the end? So if an example, which I think is really simple because we do this so easily without even thinking about it, I want to get more signatures on a petition. We see things, in our Twitter feed or in social media in general that we want to sign and provide support to. In some cases, you can even, donate to that petition if that's the case. But you need to really figure out what you want that person to do. What action is it that they have to take that's going to bring more awareness to your campaign and help, meet that goal. So whether it's, donating money for reinvestigation efforts, bringing more awareness to a cold case through a petition where you want to reach decision makers, whatever that outcome is that you're hoping for, make sure you have it written down. You've defined it really clearly. The next step is what everyone wants to do and loves doing. I personally love doing it. I use Canva a lot. There's other programs out there, but it's really easy to get started with Canva. You need to create some compelling content to grab people's attention. Remember, you're talking about something really critical, but you're doing it in an environment where everyone's talking, everyone's tweeting, everyone's sending out a TikTok or an Instagram. So you need to make sure that your message has a compelling feel to it, and nothing can make, in my opinion, make things more compelling than the right imagery, the right messaging around that imagery. And then, as you already probably know, online space is very crowded. You need to connect to people emotionally. You need to connect that content with a call to action that connects to your goal. And in many ways, you need to evoke emotion in the right way, not in a manipulative way, but in a very sort of thoughtful way. You want to tell a visual story and then consider the right digital elements to support that story. A good example of images that you can use if you're talking about cold cases is victims of families, that victim's family images, if you get permission to use that, anything that's out in the public domain. Any past videos or news clips that have been out there about the case, any podcast episodes that have talked about the case. There's a lot of creativity that you can use, that you can, leverage within Canva. Don't just think about images. You could also do really quick videos. There's just so many tools that are out there, but think about it ahead of time of what's going to tell that story the best, what's going to capture people's emotion, and what's going to make them want to click and share your content. So specific calls to action are really important. So it's not enough to have the nice imagery, the goal clear and defined. That's great, but you have to tell them what to do. You want them to share the post, sign the petition, call the senator, donate money, whatever that is. Don't assume they know it. They're busy. They're going through their day. They're on Twitter for how long? They're on TikTok for so long. There are only so much minutes in a day to get on Facebook. Tell them what you need them to do and make it easy for them to do it. My last final step is with every campaign, it's really important to think about this, and it can be easy to sort of just put out one piece of content and think that's it. It's not going to ever work if you do that, by the way, but I understand the thought process behind it. It's really important to maintain the narrative throughout what you're doing. So provide regular updates on your campaign. Even if there's nothing significant to talk about that nothing's happened. Let them know you still need their support. The things you're working on behind the scenes to get more attention to your cause or to that particular cold case. Remember that you want to grab their attention and you want to engage them in this campaign. So whether it's once a week, once a month, make sure you're continually providing content and updates that will keep them in the loop and aware of what's going on. Some great examples of how you can do that is if there's a recent news article, podcast episode about the case that is relevant to what you're trying to do, relevant to what you're trying to highlight, share that content and say, hey guys, here's a news article on this case. As you know, there's a petition out there. Keep thinking about us. Share this with 5 friends and let's move this case forward, or let's move this petition forward. Any news articles or blogs, as I mentioned, really good. Any next step that they can take to help bring more of a resolution to this case. So if you need them to keep sharing content, if you need to engage them again on making phone calls in the real world and connecting with people that need to hear your voice or their voice around an issue, all of that stuff is really relevant, but keep sort of seeding them with information, resources, reminders about this important cause and how they can continue to support it. Just to be clear about how I structure my advocacy program, it usually envelops 3 different really core areas. Not every family needs the same support, but I've built my services around developing media campaigns, fundraisers, and I don't do the money fundraising myself, but I help set up GoFundMe's and different fundraisers. I also have a lot of resources, referrals for people who might need to help fundraise for different reasons around their cold case. And I do a lot of work on advocacy and different legislative initiatives. I focus mostly in the state of New York, but I also work with other advocates in other states who want to see changes in the laws to help homicide victims' families and to get more resources to law enforcement to solve these cold cases. And the media campaign is really a big part of how we do that. We also do campaigns not only around the petition, but around specific cold cases that need more eyes on them, need more comments and more shares. And we know that there's power in that content, in that sharing. And it can also propel people who previously maybe were not open to reopening cases or didn't want to really hear from the family to actually listen to their needs. So if you want more information about cold case advocacy, how we can support you, and look at the different tools that we're building, please go to coldcaseadvocacy.com. And remember, this is all about showing care and love to families, making sure we're elevating their voices. So be responsible with anything that you do out there in the marketplace. When you're talking about cold cases, it can get very, very, like it's a very crowded space out there, but there's a lot of people talking about them in a way that is not family focused or even advocacy focused. So make sure that anything you're doing, you're thinking about how this will affect the family, sharing the right kind of content. And if you do have a relationship with a family, that's probably the best way to proceed so that you aren't creating problems for them. There may be reasons they aren't talking about the cold case. So be responsible in how you're approaching families if that's the case and you're an advocate. Thank you for taking this 11 minutes to kind of walk through this with me. If you have questions, feel free to reach out via coldcaseadvocacy.com. Thank you.